All right, good evening, everyone. The time is 7:04 p.m. Now that a quorum is present, call to order the City Council regular meeting. And everyone please stand for invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
May we bow. Dear Lord, bless the city, the residents, the workers. Bless our hearts and minds. Give us discernment to make the decisions that are best for the community we are building for today and tomorrow. Let us be respectful and work together as a community for our community. Thank you for this city, the people, and this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you may be seated. First up, we have public comments, and looks like we have, let's see, non-agenda, yellow cards, comments will be taken down from audience on non-agenda items and agenda items for the time not to exceed 5 minutes. And Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name's Robert Battle. I call myself the honorary mayor of Old Manor. And I have a Facebook group called Manor Community Coalition. I have a newsletter I send out once or twice a week to a lot of folks, and the last one said that I had filed a misdemeanor charge against the police chief. That sounds pretty dramatic, I know. But I went down there to get my police records to see what had happened as a result of this investigation. They wouldn't let me have it. They wanted to send me to the portal. I don't think so. What if I didn't have a computer? Oh, gee, problem. Okay, now another kind of interesting thing happened. Dalphin, the industrial warehouse destroying Manor Downs, that's dead on arrival. DOA. Not happening. I'll tell you why. Because they didn't complete their plans 90 days before the annexation. That's a local government code section 43.002A2. They had to have a completed application in 90 days before they try to get annexation. The reason is so that the people have the time to review it. Well, they don't get to just bulldoze their way through and plan it with all the way they did it. It was totally haphazard and it's not going to fly. Now I have some kind of sad news. Yeah, we're getting a divorce. Old Manor is getting a divorce from the city of Manor. And it's so easy, you can't believe how easy it is. It takes it's a petition with half the signatures of the resident voters in Old Manor. And we're going to de-annex it. There's no election. It's just a petition. And furthermore, as part of our divorce settlement, we're going to take Manor Downs back too. Okay? Because it reverts to its original use, which is basically agriculture, the racetrack, and events and so forth. Now, we're going to talk in an executive session about Mr. Moore, and I'd like to tell you that I've been disappointed with him for years. Especially lately, we have something called the Ethics Commission. He didn't install it a year ago. He's not installing it now. That's one of the other reasons I did a complaint to the Manor Municipal Court of no record. Why would you guys give an award to a court of no record? That's corruption. That's 200 years of Texas corruption. I gave you a chance to be a leader, Mr. Mayor, and you just totally wimped out on that and gave him a proclamation. I was embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed, but I had hoped that the judge would have stayed here long enough for my public comments because I'm trying to get that outlawed. One of the things in my lawsuit is to end the courts of no record. That's where police can go tell a lie to a judge and then someone like me gets thrown in jail with no due process and no record of what transpired. That's corruption, plain and simple. There's a few things on here. We're still back here trying to put Manor Grocery onto this little shrimpy lot, man. You guys need to get it straight. You're not doing anything historic, And no, we don't want you to use the alley to get the 18-wheelers gasoline there. And they've told you, the planning commission has told you, you guys have stood up good on that one. I appreciate it. They've been hiding from service on my lawsuit for like months. Now we're having a reading about this water usage and stuff for one of these developers. Why on earth are we paying for all these developers' water runoff? Runoff happens as a result of impermeable surfaces. Old Manor hasn't added any impermeable surface. You haven't added a sidewalk in like 80 years. The reason we get to de-annex is because you guys have done no services here. Denial of services, that's the reason we get to annex with a signed petition. I've never been so excited about getting some signatures on my petition in life. Let me rephrase that. I've never been so excited about getting some signatures on a petition. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Moving on to public comments. Public hearing. Number one, conduct a public hearing on a rezoning application for one lot on 2.786 acres more or less, being TCAD parcel 236902, also known as 12725 U.S. Highway 290, Manor, Texas, from agriculture A to IN-1 light industrial.
Mayor, Council, my name is Michael Burrell, Development Services Director for the City of Manor. This item was actually requested to be postponed until the December 17th meeting, so the public hearing would remain open, and the regular item, which is number 9, would be postponed to December 17th, per the applicant.
Can we have a motion on the floor?
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we leave the public hearing for item number 1 open until our December 17th meeting.
A motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilwoman Maynor. Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Conduct a public hearing on a rezone application for one lot on 2.274 acres more or less, being TCAD parcel 711105, also known as 19217 EasyJet Street, Manor, Texas, from agriculture to IN-1 light industrial.
Yes, this item is for Lone Star Electric. The property was annexed in recent council meetings, and this rezoning is just to allow them to utilize the property to expand their operations.
Any questions, council members?
Question: have you received any comments from the public? From the
No.
people you had to reach out to? Okay.
If there's no questions or comments, I'll take a motion, council members.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing on item number 2.
Well, motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Weir. Is any questions for the motion? No questions. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, sir. Moving along, consent agenda. All the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion on items unless requested by the mayor or council member, in which the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. 3, consideration, discussion, possible action to approve city council minutes. 4, consideration, discussion, and possible action on accepting October 2025 city monthly reports. 5, consideration, discussion, possible action on accepting 2025 fourth quarter city council committee fiscal year reports. 6, consideration, discussion, possible action on accepting 2025 October 2025 departmental reports. And 7, consideration, discussion, possible action on a 0.2931 acre wastewater utility easement for a portion of the S. Bacon Survey, Abstract 63, Travis County, Texas. 8, consideration, discussion, and possible action on a 0.221 acre water line easement for Lot 111, Block C, Wild Horse Creek Commercial, and Lot 1, Block 1, replat of Lot 12, Block C, Wild Horse Creek Commercial, also known as the Lex. Anything, questions on any items, council members, would you like to pull?
Mayor, can we pull the item 6 with the reports?
Okay, any other items? The motion for item 3, 4, 5, 7, 8.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve items 3, 4, 5, 7, 8.
Well, motion on the floor by Councilwoman Hill. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, consideration, discussion, possible action on accepting the October 2025 departmental reports. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about I guess it's D, but it's the Travis County Emergency Services, ESD 12.
Yes, ma'am.
I think recently there has been some, in the community, there's been some concern just about the number of, I don't know, getting your COs approved. And I guess there's been some fire marshal issues. And so I'm just wondering, like, is there a way that we can either pull it up or like have it in our, if there's things that are close but pending, like it's been, because it could have been months maybe since, and so just making sure that it's not on our end, the fire marshal end, but maybe the owner, if it just could be added to the report. I didn't see where it could be outlined, or if it's already in there somewhere, like it's here but it's pending, because you can see like the month it was received. Does that correlate with it, you think?
More so, what are you asking for is more of a timeline of when projects are
Yes.
starting and navigating through the process, and or finding out if how long some of these delays have happened.
Yes, I think the second part is more.
What's the delay
The
part?
delay.
Yeah, and I definitely understand what you're talking about. We were at some of the openings where it was communicated that everything went smooth except for this part, and so I'm trying to find out what's creating a pattern of delay, so that we can remedy that. So that's something you can find out for us.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Mayor Council, thank you for pulling the item and bringing it to our attention. I did send a message to the interim chief, McKenzie, asking for a list of potential items that's been a delay. So once I get that report, but we can also ask him if there's other pending COs with all the development that we have. We can see if they can have a statistical chart, add a different bullet point to say open inspections once they're delayed. It's just one more layer so we know, because when we do go to the openings, that's what we do here, and we can definitely make sure it's nothing on our part to remedy. If there's something we can do to remedy that, we will, just to make sure the communication is not, something that we've done or the builder's done. Because a lot of times you do have builders come in, and because they're trying to get paid, we're not sure all the details, but sometimes they do something, and then when there's another inspection, it fails. But because of that, now there's a mark on that project. So there's things that we can double check with our building official, just to make sure they're in the loop with a failed inspection on the fire side, so it doesn't appear it's on the city side. But just to make sure we have that communication with ESD, if there's a failed inspection, let our team know, and then that can be something to be reflected on Michael's report as well. Number of failed inspections and number of re-inspections from our team and their team, so that way we know there's nothing still hanging out there if we don't know about it. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for item 6 or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 6.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Hill. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? No questions. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Council members, we need a motion for number 9 to postpone to December the 17th.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone item number 9 until our December 17th, 2025 meeting.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Councilwoman Weir. Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Number 10, first reading, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding ordinance rezoning one lot on 2.274 acres more or less and being TCAD parcel 711105, also known as 19217 EasyJet Street, Maynard, Texas, from agriculture to IN1 light industrial. Yes, sir.
As mentioned before, this item is a rezoning of a property that was recently annexed with the intention of being an expansion of operations for Lone Star Electric.
Any questions, council members?
What exactly are there? I know it's going to be intended to serve as an extension of their operations, but is there someone to represent them that could tell us a little more detail?
We've spoken with them. It's just to store their extra material. They have certain piping and metal materials that they just need more space to store.
Yeah.
It's essentially a storage yard, but it'll follow the city's codes and standards pertaining to screening, asphalt base, egress, ingress, things of that nature.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, I can add a little bit to that. I know they have some of their inventory, I think, in Pflugerville. And so the goal is to move everything on site so they don't have to have separate. And that's why they went through the process to buy the extra land so they can have all some of the material that they have to ship out to customers. It's I guess, a better accounting for them. Yes, ma'am.
Other questions, comments? Being none, I entertain a motion.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the first reading of a rezoning ordinance of one lot on 2.274 acres more or less and being TCAD parcel 711105, also known as 19217 East Jet Street, Maynard, Texas, from A agricultural to IN1 light industrial.
A motion on the floor by Councilwoman Weir. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Number 11, consideration, discussion, and possible action on authorized Maynard Police Department to enter a 4-year agreement purchase with Axon Enterprises for the purchase of 6 tasers, additional taser 10 devices, and associated software, certification software, and licenses. Council members, I think this was the item that we discussed during the budgeting process. If there's any additional questions, do you have a presentation or are you here for questions?
No, I'm just going to, good evening, Mayor, Council. This is our taser guru here, Lieutenant Allen. So he's better equipped for any specific questions unless it's to deal with budget or whatnot. We're both here to answer any questions.
Any questions, council members?
No questions, but I would like to see a demonstration with Councilman Moreno with the taser.
I do have that on video. If you would like, I could present it at the next meeting.
Thank you.
I had a question. I saw that the date of the quote had expired. Was it okay that it was extended and we'll still get the same, or do we have to pay a penalty?
That's more for their internal tracking than anything. I've asked them about that, and they said it's something on their end, not necessarily for us to have to worry about.
What's the life expectancy on these particular tasers that you guys are asking for?
Well, I mean, that can vary. We have had some that last a month because they get run over by a car, or we've had some that last for many, many years. So it really depends on usage. And
When they get run over by the car, is there any kind of warranty that helps you guys out with that?
sometimes Taser Axon is really gracious to us, and they will sometimes replace equipment. Other times it comes at an expense to repair or replace.
Thank you.
Most things are covered under warranty. One of the pieces that typically breaks is the safety selector switch, because it's a solid piece of plastic that goes through the device, and if an officer goes to turn it on and they block it on one side, it will snap on the inside, and I'll have to send it back, and they just, it's covered. That's a warranted part. So most of these devices, the old legacy models, the X26P, which was like the old taser devices that we used to carry, those have been around since the late 90s, early 2000s, and they're still in use today. So they've got a pretty good shelf life.
It's a 5-year deal, so that warranty. I'm sorry, 49 months is the contract for the service, and then I think the warranty goes from 26 to 30 on the bundles.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question. I'm sorry.
I was just following up with the question that Councilwoman Weir was asking, and the service goes is re-upped for I guess for 60 months. That's 5 years, right?
Right.
Right.
And then and we have warranty for that entire
They'd be
time.
warranty during that time frame, and then I have to look at the specifics on the because I have all those expiration dates as far as the warranties go.
Mhm.
I have to go back and look at them.
Yeah, it looks like it's a 1-year warranty, and then we have the extended. That starts December a year from now. So that helps Councilman Weir for
sure.
Maybe not the car run over situation, but natural use. Okay. Any other questions, y'all?
These are going to be delivered next month, or would be delivered next month?
Once Mr. Moore signs the contract and I get it over to them, it might take a couple of months for it to get delivered. I mean, we're okay right now. It's just in preparation for oncoming staff and everything like that, to make sure that we have extra in case something does happen and we do have to ever, something ever breaks and we ever have to ship it back. We have extra on hand. We're okay right now, so I'm not worried about any lead time with regards to delivery. But this device has kind of been a game changer with regards to less lethal. So there is a huge demand for this device. So they're
pumping them
out as fast as they can.
So that's a great question, Councilman Moreno, because if it says estimated delivery, that warranty is based upon the estimated delivery. So will that all shift back, and can we make sure we get that in writing? Because right now the estimated delivery is December 15th, and so the first year of warranty goes into December
I can
15th.
I can get it updated.
Okay.
Get it updated.
Just so we don't have
right,
an unintended
to correlate
uncovered
with
period.
with the approval time. I'll reach out to them tomorrow,
Okay.
and then once I get any change documentation, I'll get it to Mr. Moore.
I think one of the positive highlights of it was the VR training parts, right?
Yeah.
Have you already started looking at how you're going to train?
Yeah, we've already enacted that within the department.
Okay.
We actually had it here at our Citizens Police Academy, where the cadets were able to use it, and it's would ever like to see it. It's a lot of fun.
And the kit that's going to be coming with this is actually going to be like the next gen.
Yeah.
So it's going to have some more features on it, where two people wearing headsets can go in and interact together.
Okay.
So.
Other questions, comments? If not, I entertain a motion.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve and authorize the Manor Police Department to enter into a 4-year purchase agreement with Axon Enterprises for the purchase of 6 additional TASER 10 devices and associated certification software licenses, and authorize the city manager to execute the final agreement with the updated warranty information dates.
We got a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Weir. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilman Moreno. Any questions to the motion?
I'm sorry.
Yes,
my
ma'am.
last question. Are you paying in full? Or are you paying every year?
It's going to be annually. Basically, what they did was they took the because we just did the last 5-year contract. They basically took it and it'll be tacked on to the remaining 4 years of the previous contract.
Other questions? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One tomorrow.
Consideration, discussion, possible action to approve a final change order to the construction contract for the Manor Commercial Park wastewater collection system and Carriage Hills Lift Station Number 5 Improvements Phase 1 project. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is for the change order number 2, which this project is pretty much closed out. It will be closed out when the vegetation starts to grow. On April 2nd, we did come up with a change order that was going to have to take additional piping to get to underneath Carriage Hills. But overall, once we were able to acquire an easement that was through by Lone Star instead of us having to go through a bunch of their pavement, fencing, and stuff like that. So we were able to have a deduct with a lot of those line items, and you can see on the change order itself with the deducts of what all that incurred. It's going from concrete to fencing to a gate installation and some of the pipe that we didn't have to install since we acquired that newer easement that made it more of a straight wastewater, more of a shot of a wastewater line. So this change order is actually a deduct for $816.89.
Questions, council members?
What is the additional 48 calendar days for?
That was actually pretty sure the 48 days I have Tyler with GBA too, just to have for backup, but I'm pretty sure those days were for when we were actually having to one was to extend that line underneath Carriage Hills, and we also had to go underneath that monument sign.
Super glad you didn't have to destroy the monument sign.
Yes, ma'am. They did a really good job. Thanks. Thank you. We really did want to save it.
I did have one other question though. Part of the change in the cost and everything was due to the location not being located as per the report drawing.
Yes,
How can we make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen to us again?
Yes, ma'am. As far as what I was privy to is that when they were doing the easement, Lone Star was in the same process of building their facility. And then once they built their facility, they ended up doing their parking lot. And at that time, the person that eventually did give us our easement, thank goodness Mr. Moore helped us, talk to the homeowner and was able to work with them to get the easement. As of before, they weren't able to get the easement.
So
That
good,
makes sense.
good job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll say when we look at utilities being extended, we know we had the field surveyors go out and the plans were drawn, but when you go out in the field, this allowed us to make an additional pivot. And so working with the property owners allowed them to see there was a benefit because there was a lot of concrete, there had been a lot of work, and the company was, they were giving us a little pushback, so we wanted to resist that, and we went with the alternate route to avoid just what they just poured and what they just had installed. So that the flexibility for us working with the engineers and the landowners allowed this to be again the deduct because we were able to make some decisions without having additional costs to the city.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve change order number 2 to the construction contract for the Manor Commercial Park wastewater collection system and Carriage Hills Lift Station number 5 improvements phase 1 with Pack Saddle Management LLC in a deducted amount of $816.89 and an addition of 48 calendar days.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wallace. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Weir. Any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 13, consideration, discussion, and possible action to approve a resolution setting and issuing notice of a public hearing for the creation of a tax increment reinvestment zone, tiers number 3, containing approximately 41.6 acres of land, and directing the preparation of a preliminary reinvestment zone project and finance plan. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Scott Jones, Economic Development Director. Here before you, you have in your packet a resolution that we would like you to consider after hearing the presentation from Travis James with TXP, our consultant, who has put together a very comprehensive preliminary plan for the creation of TERS Zone number 3, which contains 2,941 acres on the eastern side of town. It's our commercial TERS, first truly commercial TERS, which starts primarily at the Gensel track where the new city hall is going to be built. It's south of 290 and includes almost everything else including Manor Commercial Park and everything to the city limits, and including the ETJ. So it's a lot of commercial property, and it will bring in a lot of TERS tax revenues for the incremental tax that the city brings in that will help us pay for a lot of different things. So I'll turn it over to Travis and let him tell you a little bit about it.
Mayor, Council, good to be in front of you again. Travis James with TXP. I had the privilege of working on the comprehensive plan as a sub-consultant, so it's good to be back out here. I was out here a few months ago when you all brought the firm in to help do this for you. So I think obviously you have 2 existing TERS. You're familiar with TERS, TERSs, whatever the proper plural of TERS is. So I'll give you all a quick highlight to remind everybody how these work, or anybody in the audience, just so they know how these work, and then we can talk specifically about this TERS. I think you all know these are an economic development tool. They're used across the state. There are hundreds of these. It's not uncommon for cities to have multiple TERS. Counties typically join after a city creates them. There's no tax increase. There's no impact on the landowner. All the calculations are done with the city at the staff level, and you all have to make an accounting of the money, and that's a public record, and that's in your CAFR and all your annual financial reports. You also, as you know, file at the Texas Comptroller as well. So there's a lot of transparency and accountability in how these tools are used. They're meant to construct public infrastructure or reimburse a developer who puts in the infrastructure for you, and you pay them back with real property tax revenue that's generated in the TERS. It encourages development in certain parts of the community. State law lists what you can spend it on. Here's a list in front of you. It's roads, it's sidewalks, it's utilities, it's land, it's public buildings, it's demolition. Kind of all the things you spend your economic development resources on, you're allowed to use a tax increment reinvestment zone to pay for those, but just within that geographic area. This is a little picture we put together to help folks. You hear a lot of terminology. There's the base value. That's the value of a TERS today, or of your previous TERS you approved. So there's a base value. The tax revenue you generate off that base value continues to go to the general fund as if the tax increment reinvestment zone did not exist. You then choose to put all or a portion of the future growth in the TERS. And the preliminary project and finance plan, I think you were provided with, I assume 50%. That's consistent with what you did for the downtown TERS. So that's what we went with on this one. So for a super simple example, if you had a $1 million tax base as the baseline with a 25% tax rate, $2,500 goes to the general fund. Over time, at the bottom, you add additional revenue. In this simple scenario, you've added $4 million of development. You've generated an additional $10 million in tax revenue that's split 50-50. The original $2,500 goes to the general fund. $5,000 goes to the general fund, as you see there at the top, and then $5,000 goes into that TERS piggy bank. So every year, the trick to these is you've got to get new taxable development to happen. If you don't get new taxable development to happen, real property, there is no tax increment, there is no money to pay for projects. So a lot of communities like these because they are pay as you go, or you have to generate activity to be eligible to get that reimbursement. How do cities typically spend the funds? They either spend them on an annual cash flow basis, whatever cash you generate, that's what you can spend the following year or that year. You can reimburse a developer. So I'm working on a lot of these now where a developer will spend $5, $10, $15 million on infrastructure. They will get paid back over time, however long that takes. And then once they're paid back, the TERS may go away, or you may use those TERS funds on something else. Some communities do issue bonds backed by the TERS revenue. You would only do that down the road, working with your financial counsel, working with the city manager. You have to generate enough money to pay back the bond. So you don't issue this debt year one. It would be something you would do like in year 4, year 5, year 6. Don't have to do it. It's just an option. You're allowed to do that by state law. And so some communities do that down the road if they're able to get a better tax rate, an interest rate, so they can save a little bit of money issuing that TERS debt. But it really just depends. I'm going quick because we got the holidays coming up and it's late. So there's 2 TERS rules. You can't have more than a certain amount of residential at the time it's created, not what it looks like in the future. You can't have more than 30%. So the TERS that's in front of you tonight complies with that. The other thing says you just can't have too many of these, and it's based on whether you're a city of over 100,000 people or under 100,000 people. You obviously have about 25,000 people in the city, so you can have up to 50% of your appraised value in reinvestment zones and industrial districts. So when the Scotts brought me in, they said, what do we need to do this year if the council and the mayor decide to go forward? We have to get through steps 4 by the end of the year, and I'll talk about a schedule. You have to have a preliminary project and finance plan, which you have in front of you. You have to publish a public notice at least 7 days in advance. You all do this all the time. You have to have a public hearing, and then it's going to take 2 readings to get approved. Once you get through that, the TERS exists, and the base value will be year 25. So last year, you all created your downtown TERS towards the end of the year, and because you did it by the end of the year, it has a 24 base value. The first year of growth is the tax revenue we got in 25, and that's not due until the beginning of next year, right? So remember, it does take time. So on your downtown TERS 24, you created, I think, October, November of 24. 25 was the first year of sort of increment or growth. Kind of people mix those terminology together. Mm-hmm. Those taxes aren't due until the middle of next year. So it does take time for this. I should have said, if you look at what other cities do, some of your peers, people use the terms TIF and TERS interchangeably. TIF stands for tax increment financing, and under that statute, you create tax increment reinvestment zones. So if you ever hear the word TIF or TERS, people are talking about the same thing. Cities are allowed to put in sales tax. Most don't these days because of the 3.5% cap in state law. So what's in front of you is just on your real property, not your business personal. So if we get through steps 4 by the end of the year, you'll have to say how many years you want it to exist, what's the zone, how many board members. State law says you have to have at least 5, no more than 15. We're good to go. Beginning of next year, we'll come back. We'll create the final project and finance plan. I'll talk about that in a minute. The TERS board needs to meet. That means you would have to appoint those people. They will approve the final project and finance plan. Then it comes back to you again. So you always remain in control and you will be kept in the loop. So there is still more to be done at the beginning of next year if you go ahead and approve it. And all that should be in your packet, the notice, the ordinance, all that good stuff. This is what we're calling commercial TERS 3. Scott described it. What's in red is within the city limits. What's in blue is in the ETJ. You had some conversation earlier tonight about annexation. And so for this to work, these properties would need to come in for annexation. They would then pay city property tax, and then you would likely, if you so chose, come up with some kind of agreement to spend the TERS money. Most cities won't spend money in the ETJ because they're not paying taxes. So this is a tool that gets put in place. Landowners will come to you and ask for voluntary annexation, and then you will generate property tax revenue, and that's how it works. There's a parcel down there at the bottom, and I have the tax ID. It's part in your city limits, part outside. I'm sorry, it's part in your ETJ, part outside of your ETJ. In white there, that is one parcel. And so we can talk a little bit, do we include it? Do we not include it? It's a little bit more work to just kind of divide that property every year and figure out what % of the value was within Maynard's ETJ or not. So that's the reason why I highlighted that in white. You can leave it in, there's no harm, but just to let everybody know. This is a really complicated map because the economists aren't good at making maps. We're good at spreadsheets and numbers. So I know it's a little bit hard to read, but you got a number of projects in there. This tells you the land use. This is just to depict to everybody that there's not too much residential. It's mostly, as you know, light industrial, some light manufacturing, underdeveloped. There's the city-owned property. I know y'all have worked on some master plans for that. There's Maynard Town Square. There's some different things in this area. That's why the TERS was grown this way or drawn this way, working with Scott. He thought, let's just have one TERS out here. It makes it easier. If you chose, you could have 4 or 5. I think less is always easier to manage than more. Again, a lot of this is in your ETJ. You've got the Wannick property, Maynard Springs, Maynard Town Square, the city property. Sometimes these projects happen, sometimes they don't, sometimes they look a little bit different. But at least if you go forward with this, you will have this tool in place for if these properties come in for voluntary annexation. There's a lot of assumptions that have to get made. I ran a model at 25 years, held your 2025 tax rate constant. Your tax rates go up and down. So the calculation always uses whatever year's tax rate that is. It's not set for 25. I assume 2.5% appreciation. As I said, no sales tax would be contributed. I looked at a couple of the projects in the pipeline and then just said $10 million more stuff will happen out there. This is a hot growth corridor, as you all know. There's lots of activity. We can refine this. I did assume that these areas will come in for voluntary annexation, so they will pay city tax. If they do not come in for voluntary annexation, then you do not generate any property tax. Does that make sense to everybody? So high level, 50-50. This could be 90 million, 100 million. I think that's on the low end, just looking at a couple of these. So we're talking, $100 million plus to go to the TERS, and the city would keep an equal amount over time, just depending on what scenarios you want to assume on those projects, what the development looks like, all of those kinds of things. This will get refined as part of that final project and finance plan. I think as we talked about in the past when I was here, you can make changes to TERS. I mean, once you start entering into development agreements, it gets a little bit harder. But if you're done with the TERS and you pay everything off faster and you do all your projects faster, you can terminate the TERS. You can change contribution percentages. If there's a lot of growth and 50% is too high, you say let's lower it to 40, you can do that. Again, if you have debt or other kinds of agreements, you might not be able to, but just sort of conceptually, you can extend the boundaries, you can extend the duration so you have flexibility. That all has to be done by ordinance. So just like everything else, state law says you have to make those changes in a similar way in which the TERS was created. So you'd have to have public notices, public hearings, 2 readings, those kinds of things. That's what would be required. But again, if you want to create it this year, we've got to get through the public notice, the public hearing, and then get it approved on second reading. So without being presumptuous, this is what it would look like based on your current meeting dates. I know I work with a lot of cities that will call special meetings. I don't think you all want to do that. So it is possible for you to still get this TERS put in place this year based on the meetings you already have on the calendar. So I covered a lot. So now I'll answer questions. Mayor, anything?
No,
comments,
very
questions?
clear. I definitely understand it. And we'll yield to my colleague to see if you all have some follow-up questions on the process.
My question, what happens or what's impacted if it is not, approved by the new year or before the new year?
if you don't approve it this year, you'd have to do it next year. You'd have to still follow that same process. The base year would be 2026. I know y'all are in some conversations on certain properties and certain developments, and those things may or may not be contingent on using this tool. So it would just push things back a year in terms of development. You still have to follow that process. And I'm helping half a dozen cities right now scramble to get them in. I said, this is why we should have done this, earlier in the year. But no, so you would just get pushed back a year.
Other questions?
Do you anticipate any protests with people not wanting their land to be included?
That would not be common, in part because it doesn't impact their property. So they don't pay any more or less tax. It doesn't require them to be annexed. And so it really has no impact on a landowner. So you typically do not see people, unless they're just opposed to this tool in general, it doesn't impact a property owner. So you don't typically have them protest being included.
We didn't have anybody show up for the downtown TERS.
Yeah. This is more so about us deciding how to spend potential ad valorem increases. And so similar to when we did the downtown, we wanted to make a decision in 24 so that I think there was two things that was taking place. One was the tax rate increase. The other was the developments that we were going to see coming in. So the properties that are under construction and happening right now are now they're in that TERS under the old tax rate. So we'll see a good value coming not only to the TERS portion but also to the city part. And so that's kind of the same philosophy for this one. Is we know that there's some things that's going to be moving in 26 and 27. So the sooner we put the overlay there, the more revenue we can generate in that large area, which means we have the income opportunities to incentivize development sooner. So when you think about the projects there, where the Manor Town Hall Center is going to be, that this can actually help with the roads getting there quicker, water lines getting where they need to get there quicker, so that the construction process can happen on schedule to do that. Same thing with water lines or anything that needs to get out towards East Metro. We can incentivize everything in between those spaces, close the time gap, help people get on site quicker, and which would then bring the revenue back quicker, and it'll save us from having to pull out of pocket.
And one of the reasons we have this it's already in the newspaper and we already have it scheduled for the next two meetings, is to make sure that because it does affect the Manor Town Center project, is to make sure that before any development happens out there that we have the base year set for 2025. Because if development starts happening in 2026, we want to make sure that we capture that any tax increment that increases out there.
Questions? Other questions? While they're sifting through, just to double check on that, I would say wanted to give you all kudos on the breakdown. There's a lot of data out there about TERS and stuff that explain it, and you all did a pretty good job breaking it down, making it digestible. So I think about our folks out there watching the stream or in the community that may want to understand kind of what it is. So
good. And if you want, Mayor, if you so choose to move forward with this, I can give a similar presentation in 2 weeks. That's not uncommon. So if anyone comes from the community and wants to hear more, obviously you can call me whenever you want as a resource. I work for you. But if you want a similar presentation in 2 weeks, I'd be happy to give this same presentation and answer questions that anybody in the community has. That's not a problem at all. And that's typically what I do. Even though you may understand it, you're hearing it for the third or fourth time. If other people want to hear it, I'll be here to answer any questions as well.
That'll be when the public hearing is.
Yeah.
I would say, Mayor Council, if we get through the process through the next two meetings, and we need to have a little communication, when we start talking about the town center and all that, we can at least have this part of the conversation to show that, because if it comes online and different investments come on in 26, 27, which we know those are scheduled, then we can just definitely let the numbers start really being able to add. Because I was going to say, part of the downtown tours, we've got about 265,000 there now to do on the list. Some of the things that the facade or different things downtown. So we do have an option to make some improvements downtown once a couple of buildings are online with Mr. Davis and then Bill Block. Once those properties are on, we're going to be able to capture that. So that's going to add more value. So the sidewalks and storm drainage, all those other public improvements to make that a walkable area will be able to get addressed, because now we have monies to do that.
And just to remind you, this will come back to you a couple times, so you will still have oversight with the final project finance plan. What is an eligible expenditure? Create those buckets, any rules you want to put around how that money can and can't be spent. And then if there are development agreements with the tourists, those would also typically come back to you. So you're not done with these just at the end of the year. So these will sort of be percolating, especially now that you have 2 or 3 of these tools. They'll be, coming back to you with a similar sort of feel and format.
And Travis is going to be representing us for the administration of TERS 2, and so we'll be having that meeting after the first of the year as well.
I think my question would be, the people for the board.
Mm-hmm.
So it will not be us, right?
Well,
Yes,
Yeah,
it will be.
The board for TERS 2 currently, the
Is us.
ordinance set the council members as the board for TERS 2, and so I assume our legal counsel put in the ordinance for TERS 3 the same board members, if that's what you desire.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, council members, Veronica Rivera, Assistant City Attorney. That is correct. TERS number 1, when it was created, had city council members as the TERS board as well. This is typical as well. That can be done, and that is what we did for TERS 2, and that is the recommendation as well for TERS 3.
This is more so for city staff on our bonds, commissions, and committee page. Can we add the previous TERS presentations up there? I know it's in our agenda that actually happened on those actual specific days, but can we have like this specific presentation for the TERS 1, TERS 2, and 3 up there, so that people can go and actually see what was kind of the same breakdown. And it might also just be good to have maybe a general landing page where it just kind of says TERS and then the breakdown of what they are, and then we have 3 or 2, we have 2 proposed 3. Just kind of have a hub for all this information, so it's searchable and it can answer questions, standalone questions.
Yeah, I think we can get, probably IT can create a probably even under incentives. If you want to do it under economic development page, you can do it under incentives and have TERS 1, 2, and 3 page for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also going to be my request, because I was checking out the webpage today and I saw those 2 TERS, and I also saw for TERS 1 the term expired for the ones that were on there. So I don't know if we gotta revisit that and update it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they do need to be refreshed.
Mayor, council members, let me address that. It's the website may just need to be updated, but the ordinance states that if someone changes, then that's why we did not provide names. We provided the places.
Yeah, I think just all of that probably needs to have like its own home and web page with the ordinances and stuff like that. So it's just kind of self-explanatory, and nobody has to figure out. And I think it should link maybe it's its own space and is linked from the boards and commissions page and from economic development.
Okay.
Um, other questions, council members?
I had a question about the two key rules. With the more than 30% of the property is used for residential purposes. Does the part that's already city, could that be all the 30%? Like, do we have 30% without the ETJ, or do you have to?
I don't believe you do. If you go to, do they have a copy of this, Scott?
Yes.
You do. Page 2 gives you the breakdown. So no, it's table 2, page 2. I broke it down for the top part is they don't have.
No, that one's in. Yes, that's in the backup. Yeah, it's two things. You have the backup, then you have the hard copy. So that part is in the backup.
So in the backup, when that report, there's a table that breaks down. It gives you what's in the city limits, what's in the ETJ, and then a total. So you will be fine under either definition. It's for land that's not publicly owned. And so the land, so when you look at it, you'll see the land use categories that describe the difference. So single family, you don't have any multifamily in the city limits. There is a little multifamily in the ETJ, but you would comply. State law doesn't tell you if you have to do it based on acreage or value, which you would comply again both ways depending on which methodology you used.
There's so much open farmland out there in that 2,900 acres. It's very, very slight amount of residential.
So we definitely need to have the ETJ to meet that 30%. Oh.
No, you don't have to have the ETJ. It would work if you just did the city limits. The ETJs, there's a number of projects that are in the ETJ that you all have talked about that may come in, and so it's easier. It's easier to add the area now, because if you try to expand the TERS, it's not a big deal. You can't. You just have different base years. So every time you add to the TERS, you're having to keep track of this was 25, this was 26, this was 28. So I always say it's a little easier if you think long term to try to maybe make it bigger, and then if you shrink it, it's a little easier. But if you start kind of piecemealing it, it's just staff has to spend more time kind of keeping track of the numbers.
I would say, council, there's one commercial development that's being built there right before you get to Ballerstedt. So if you go 290 east, you'll be able to see that's a pretty good size, substantial. We did the zoning, and so that would be one of the things that would be captured in the base year of 2025 for the TERS, because that's one that it was farm ground. Now it's going to be a major industrial spot for heavy equipment.
Mr. Moore, did you say Ballerstedt in 290?
Yeah, that's the property that we approved just to the west of Ballerstedt. It's if you go to Elgin, you see all that. It's a heavy manufacturer company that's building their new building.
Okay. I'll take a question or a motion.
So this motion is just to approve the resolution, and then we'll be coming back, having the public hearing on the 3rd and first reading, and then the second reading will be on the 17th, and then the request for the ordinance to be approved.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 2025-42, setting a public hearing for the creation of a tax increment reinvestment zone, TERS number 3, containing approximately 2,940 1.6 acres of land, authorizing the city secretary to issue the notice regarding the public hearing, and directing the city to prepare a preliminary reinvestment zone project and financing plan.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Moreno. Is there a second?
I second.
Well, a second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Any questions to the motion?
My question is, approving the resolution today approves the boundaries, just the full 2,900 acres. Oh, sorry, Joe.
You still have time to make changes between, if you want to change the boundary, before the second reading.
But this is what would go into the public hearing part.
Correct.
But this zone description.
Correct. There is a notice that is attached to the resolution that it will be appearing in the newspaper along with the amount, which is 2,000 acres. The preference would be that if you want to reduce the boundary area, that would be fine. If you want to increase the boundary area, we'd have to look into it on whether we would need to re-notify.
Okay. Got a motion on the floor. Take the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, council. If you have
Thank
any
you.
questions on properties, just come talk to me. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Item number. Hold on. All right. Before we do item 14, I need a follow-up conversation and an executive. So, council will now convene into executive session pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code. We'll be right back out with the rest of the regular agenda. City Council will now reconvene into open session pursuant to the provisions of Texas Government Code Chapter 551. And we're going to jump to item number 14, second and final reading, consideration, discussion, possible action regarding the ordinance rezoning one lot on 0.237 acres more or less and being TCAD parcel 238889, also known as 100 and 102 East Parsons Street, Maynard, Texas, and from DB Downtown Business to C1 Light Commercial. Yes, sir.
Mayor, council, this is the rezoning for the Maynard Grocery parcel. the items were postponed last time at the request of the council to allow the applicant to be present for any questions pertaining to the renderings provided or the general plan. We could say that, of course, for the SUP, but the zoning is what would be needed in order for the SUP to be considered.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all for coming out. Council members, do you have follow-up questions for Mr. Burrell or for the owners?
Just to clarify, it's going to light commercial because our new ordinance require for it to be a gas station is light commercial, whereas before downtown businesses could have.
Correct. Downtown business does not allow for gas stations. C1 light commercial does with a specific use permit.
Okay.
Other questions? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the second and final reading of ordinance number 808 for one lot on 0.2376 acres, more or less in being TCAD parcel 238889, also known as 102 East Parsons Street, Maynard, Texas, from downtown business to C1 light commercial.
Well, motion on the floor by Councilmember Moreno. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Hill. Any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. You got, go ahead.
I just want to say, Mr. Garcia, sorry for your loss. We heard, about your loss, and thank you guys for being so patient with us.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Moreno. No questions to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 15, consider discussion possible action on a special use permit for one lot on 0.2376 acres more or less, being TCAD parcel 238889, also known as 102 East Parsons Street, Maynard, Texas. Council members, this one is related specifically to a special use permit. Do you have any follow-up questions for Mr. Burrell or for the owners? If there are no questions, I entertain a question or a motion.
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a special use permit for one lot on 0.2376 acres, more or less in being TCAD parcel 238889, also known as 100 and 102 East Parsons Street, Maynard, Texas, with the conditions that the permit only applies to the current owners of the parcel and development agreement must be approved by council and executed clearly indicating the improvements being made to the subject property and adjacent businesses as shown in presentations to the council, and the SUP expires within 2 years of approval.
Council members, we have a motion, Councilmember Moreno on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Well, second by Councilwoman Weir. Any questions to the motion? Any additional questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 16, consideration, discussion, and possible action on a special use permit for 10,000 square feet medical space being generally located near the eastern corner of Bowes d'Arc in the north of US Highway 290, also referred to as 13400 East US Highway 290, Maynard, Texas. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council, this item is the medical office specific use permit for the property located just west of the Presidential Glen subdivision entrance. It'll be the subdivision entrance, the gas station, and then that square right there where our lift station currently exists. The item was brought back for reconsideration last meeting. Councilwoman Weir decided to make the motion for reconsideration, and additional information was provided. To provide time for review of that information, it was then postponed to this meeting. The applicant is available for questions pertaining to the analysis they provided, and we will try our best to answer any inquiries you have.
Mr. Baca, did you want to go ahead and come up?
All right, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you so much for y'all's reconsideration of this proposed SUP, this request for an SUP. Based on the information that we were gathering from council, we were looking for more information on the types of medical services that would be used, those who've expressed interest in this particular building. And the owner, who is here with us today and can answer detailed questions that you may have, according to the information that they've provided, you should have had in your packet, their highest priority is looking for dermatologists, pediatric subspecialties, adult endocrinology, cardiology, orthopedic sport medicine, adult allergy, immunology. So a lot of the specialties that are underserved in the market according to the market studies. They've also been approached, people have called and expressed interest, such as urologist, immunologist, orthopedic sports therapist, and the like. And so we hope that this shows the interest that's needed for specialty medical use.
Define pediatric specialties. Like what, is that just,
well,
is that beyond a pediatric?
Yeah, in the market study, what it shows that is underserved in the market is allergy, ENT, pulmonology, endocrinology for the pediatric subspecialties.
Okay. So not necessarily just pediatrics, or is
Correct.
that inclusive?
That is correct. Yeah, not in general, but pediatric subspecialties. Okay. And it shows that there is a need in this market for that, and that is who the owners are. You know, that's their priorities as far as getting
I was asking because we had a doctor that was here.
Okay.
That was looking to try to come back. That's
yeah.
That's why I was seeing if that's in the range or not.
Okay.
Yeah, they were hoping. Yeah, they were looking for a permanent home. That's why I was
sure.
asking. Okay.
Well, and the owner's looking for a place to provide permanent homes for the medical specialist.
Okay, but I don't know. I'm assuming is just a generic pediatrics. Is that considered specialties in the list, or
well, not specifically on the market study. It's not shown as an underserved market.
But y'all open to it.
Well, the owner and the owner can speak for himself on that. But it's a market. So
okay, all right.
So you're saying the information that you gathered says that the general pediatrics, the availability that we have of Baylor Scott and White being the only pretty much primary one for that. That's all that we need. I mean, that just
it's not showing as an underserved market.
That's hard for me to believe.
I mean, so effectively, sorry, Stephen Gibson, nice to meet you all. So effectively what we were looking at is what is not represented in the market in its totality. So effectively, there's a number of people and groups that have come out and said, hey, look, we would like to, be in this market. And so whether that is, all the different groups that we're talking about here, or for your example, if there was an additional, pediatrics person who wanted to come in, and overall, if the market said that that's something that both we believe is needed, those are all groups that we would be open to working with and leasing to. According to the market study, which was requested, here's the groups that are completely not represented right now. And so while we're saying these are groups that we would be interested in talking to, we would be open to all medical uses, especially if, the council and everybody else in the market believed that it was needed.
Yeah. And sorry, that's what I was trying to ask. I just probably asked wrong.
Understood.
But yeah, I didn't know. Yeah. Thank you, though, for that clarification.
I'll have to be the scapegoat here because the developer asked, they were having a little trouble with some of the questions and such. So I asked the developer to go out and do the market study and find out the issues and see who was underserved in the market, in the medical market here. And so they came out and did the study and came back with all of these uses that might be tenants for the building. So that was kind of on my request. And so they've done the work and such. At the same time, I was doing a medical study for a hospital out on, either on our 236 acres or across the street for a doctor group that's looking on the 67 acres out there. And there's as we know, a huge underserved medical market out here. So there are a lot of different specialties as well as general practice that are underserved in the medical market. They call it a medical desert here in Manor. And so there are a lot of different specialties and general practice that are underserved. So yeah, pediatric general practice would be one of those, as well as all these specialties.
Ms. Ann, I think part of the reason that they would say that the pediatrics is not a big thing out here is because we do have a lot of the family practice. Because you have Baylor Scott and White, you have ARC, and you have the clinic in the urgent care building. So right now, that's probably why they would say that pediatrics is not a necessary thing, because we have so much family practice.
Yeah, and I don't think he's saying it's not necessary. I think, again, specifically, it's more so of this was the request for the study, and this is here are some guaranteed opportunities.
Because we definitely do need it, but you know, it's that might be why it was said it wasn't at the top of the list.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I know from my constituents, many of them tell me that they are forced to take their children to Dell, and that's a hardship, and that's a lacking on our part, not being able to take care of our children. I'm concerned about that.
And again, we're wildly open to, you know, all of those, you know, practitioners, especially, you know, in this market. And I think, you know, the market, if it is needed, you know, they're going to be, hopefully, great tenants, and there will be more representation here.
Yeah.
With that being said, I am also happy with the other, because I do know this, there's a great need for endocrinology in this area, and the cardiac, for sure, is some of the people that I talk to with health issues. So I'm pleased with hearing some of that.
And you could possibly get in touch with Cardio Texas, because they had doctors that were coming out here, but they were only coming out here once a week, or you know, not very often, because they were sharing space with other doctors.
Yeah.
So if they had a permanent space where they could have their own equipment, they may be interested in putting a doctor out here.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah. Questions or motion, council members?
Mayor Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a specific use permit for 10,000 square feet in the medical office space being generally located near the eastern corridor of Bois d'Arc and north of US Highway 290, and also referred to as 13400 East US Highway 290, Manor, Texas.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Moreno. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Got a question down there?
I do. I have a question. What is the other 4,000 square feet for?
Well, it's a 10,000 square foot building.
And I thought it said on here that your office space would be, or you would only use 6,000.
The market study was originally done for a 6,000 square foot footprint. Yes, the market study was originally done for a 6,000 square foot footprint. That was modified. The front pages show that modification, and I think it got missed on some of the later pages.
So the entirety of the building would be the medical use.
Other questions? No other questions? Y'all good? Okay. We have a motion on the floor. No additional questions. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. City Council will now reconvene. We're now convene into executive session, pursuant to the provisions of Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Time is 12:17 a.m. November 20th. Good morning, everyone. City Council will now reconvene into open session pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 551 Texas Government Code. Number 17, consideration, discussion, possible action on a resolution of the City of Maynard, Texas, determining the costs of certain authorized improvements to be financed by the Mustang Valley Public Improvement District, approving a preliminary service and assessment plan, including the proposed assessment rolls, calling for a notice of a public hearing for December 3rd, 2025, to consider an ordinance levying assessments on property located within the Mustang Valley Public Improvement District, directing the filing of proposed assessment rolls and the city secretary to make said proposed assessment rolls available for public inspection, directed city staff to publish and mail notice of said public hearing, and resolving other matters related to the foregoing. Ms. Mal.
Mayor, council members, Veronica Rivera, Assistant City Attorney. What you have in front of you is proposal again, a resolution again to call a public hearing to levy assessments for Mustang Valley and also to approve the PSAP. This item is being brought to you again, and we're starting. We need to start with the resolution again and call the public hearing. We have P3 here to provide you what has changed from the last time that the PSAP was provided to you on this project. And then we also have the developer that would like to just summarize the outline that was provided to you that you have on the dais.
I'm John Lorum with KB Home, and I don't know whether to say good evening or good morning, but
Good morning.
both work in this case. Thought we'd just kind of go over a quick summary of about Mustang Valley and where we stand today, a little background history. So the approvals that have been already obtained, the development agreement was executed in October of 2021. There was PIG creation authorized in June of 2023. Reimbursement agreement was approved in April of 2024. The PID financing agreement was approved in June 2024. The remaining steps that need to be taken are consider the cost determination resolution including approval of the preliminary service and assessment plan, calling of a public hearing for the levy of assessments on improvement area number 1. That's today, what we're doing hopefully to get that step. And then conduct a public hearing on the levy of the assessments and consider ordinance levying assessment on improvement area 1, which is really our first phase of development, including approval of a service and assessment plan. And hopefully that takes place here in a couple of weeks on December 3rd. And then the next steps would be approval to issue bonds as early as March or April of 2026, and then issue bonds as early as right after that, April or May of 2026, based on the financial metrics and assessment collections due on January 31st, 2027. So I'll go over a few more items here and then be able to answer some questions or have some additional information provided. Just to reiterate, the PID improvements that were made to Area 1, which is mostly Phase 1, $6.6 million of total public improvements benefiting Improvement Area 1. Then we also $341,000 of private improvements that were made. Phase 1A and 1B includes off-site water line in the community park. So not only was it just the streets and the homes that were built, but there was also streets that were done off-site and utility lines that were extended to the property. In addition, as part of this, Phase 4A is Ventura Arbor Lane, and that's the road that will connect north and south and provide some relief off of the front side of the property, the community. We prepaid all wastewater impact fees, about $1.5 million, that helped to facilitate the development of the system and to grow not only for us but for larger growth for the system. And then we made an agreement to dedicate additional right-of-way for Cameron Road extension that will connect east-west across the north side of the property. As far as the PID assessment terms, because of where we're at right now, KB will absorb the assessment principal installment and issuance of bonds as soon as possible. So we can have issuance of bonds as soon as possible in 2026. The estimated cost for KB Home to do those for the 2026 period is approximately $45,000. Homeowners will have a $0 levy due on January 31st of 2026. So this coming January, they're not going to owe anything. KB Home will take care of that. As part of that, as we've talked about before, the payments that will be due in January 31st of 2027 have been completely communicated to the property owners, and we've had great response and had no questions that have come up. So beginning in that January period, their assessments will go for 29 years. Originally, it was planned for 30 years, as you might recall. By us picking up the first year, they'll be responsible for 29 years. In addition, the annual assessment amount for the homeowners will be $240.70, lower than what they anticipated when they were informed about this at the sales meeting and then at subsequent times. And what's really important to note here is that there's no financial impact to the city of Manor. This has been, the dollars that are raised to pay for bonds are coming from the assessments to the homeowners and KB's contribution into that as well. So just kind of going back through those, I want to kind of make some note about the steps that have been taken to make sure that our current home buyers, not only the ones that have closed on their homes, but those that have signed a contract and are planning to close upcoming here. They were informed about the PID during the sales presentation. The notification was provided to the home buyers at the time they executed the purchase agreement. So there's two different times there. And they signed a document that verified that they'd received that information. They were also informed during their loan reviews with the lender, which primarily is KB's lender, though there are a few that with outside lenders. But that information was provided to those lenders as needed. And then also when they were informed by the title company at the execution of the closing documents. So multiple times through the process. Subsequently, we then, at the behest of the city, we went back and re-engaged with all the home buyers, had an open house. Many people came and got an update on the status of things. We mailed out documents to them to show them what the PIT assessment amounts were. We hand delivered and did what we call door hangers for all the homeowners. There's a couple out of the area, so we did email to them to double check that they had confirmation and sent 2 letters to those folks. And then an information session was available also, and I think we had 1 or 2 people that did a Zoom session. So we just have gone, out of our way and worked closely with the city to meet what the expectations were there to make sure the homeowners were advised. And to this date, I haven't had any negative comments or any questions come up. I have not heard, and I think we asked, the city has not had any home buyers that have come to the city. I think we killed them with kindness and information. And again, great recognition by the city how important that was to make sure everybody knew what's going on there. So in the package that you received, there's also a page that has some frequently asked questions that goes over a little more information. A little bit gets a little bit more technical than my expertise with PIDs and those kind of things. So Andrea is here to answer any questions that might be out there for that. I'd be glad to try and answer any questions, but and Veronica may have some answers or any questions you might have there. So stand by for any questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, I'm Andrea Barnes with P3 Works. So there are very minor changes that were made to the preliminary service and assessment plan that was presented to you back in October. One is on the cover page. Obviously, the date changed. So we have today's date. And then the other change is to page, I don't have my glasses on. So it's going to be Exhibit F1. That is several pages long, and I cannot make out that page number. But anyway, so it's several pages long. It's the assessment roll. 43. So starting on page 43 of the preliminary service and assessment plan. And the change to that particular exhibit is the number of homes that are indicated with a footnote as to having been either closed or scheduled to close before the assessment is planned to be considered by this governing body, which is on December 3rd. So if the home is already closed or it is scheduled to close on or before December 3rd, it has a footnote indicating such on the assessment roll. There's a total of 42 properties that are impacted by that. And that's it. Those are the only 2 changes from the document you saw in October to the document that is before you tonight. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions, comments, council members? I know. Y'all have any questions, comments? Okay. Yeah. Questions or comments, council members? If none, I'll take a motion on the floor.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 2025-43 of the City of Manor, Texas, determining the cost of certain authorized improvements to be financed by the Mustang Valley Public Improvement District, approving a preliminary service and assessment plan, including the proposed assessment rolls, calling for notice of a public hearing for December 3rd, 2025, to consider an ordinance levying assessments on the property located within the Mustang Valley Public Improvement District, directing the filing of the proposed assessments rolls with the city secretary to make said proposed assessment rolls available for public inspection, directing city staff to publish and mail notice of said public hearing, and resolving other matters related to the foregoing.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Moreno. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallace. Any questions to the motion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Time is what's that? 12:29 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.